We get questions all the time about various tools we use, materials, techniques, and so on. But recently, one of the questions that's been coming in most often, strangely enough, is about the lighting. How we make this look the way it does.
And now it's time for some geekication.
What's up, you awesome geeks? I'm Brian, this is the Smugglers Room, and in today's geekication, we're going to talk about lighting. Specifically, we're going to talk about the type of lighting that we use in our shop when we film our episodes. Now, we've been asked about the equipment, how we make a Smugglers Room episode, and so on, but really specifically, there's been a lot lately that is geared towards the way the shop is lit and the way our videos are lit. Now, I'm not a lighting expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I've done a fair amount of research on using different types of lights, whether that be a key light or some type of light that is giving a hard edge to the background or focusing in on the specific project we're working on. So before I go through all those details, let me show you a couple of different looks with our lighting versus standard overhead lighting. Now, when we film our episodes, we usually have a prop or something that we're working on. And the lighting that we have set up specifically, I feel like it gives that work a little bit extra attention. Specifically, when I'm working with any kind of aluminum or metal, we want to be able to showcase that as best as possible. And the type of lighting we use, we catch a little bit of this blue, we get a little bit of the warmth from the other side, and then obviously there's enough light so that you are able to see some of the reflective qualities and get a really good view of what it is we're working on. So if I go ahead and change this to our other lighting, then this is what you end up with. This is the difference. So yes, there's still some reflectiveness on the hard drive motor here, but it's not quite as dynamic, and to me, the whole image looks really flat. And when we started the Smugglers Room, we wanted to avoid this if all possible. And so we did some research. Let me take you through a tour of the shop and show you what kind of lighting we actually use. Now, this is a fully working workshop, so of course we need the proper amount of light in the ceiling so that we can work with things like the table saw and be able to see what we're doing. The last thing I'm interested in when I'm working with big power tools is not having enough light to be able to see. So we do a lot of that filming with the overheads on, the fluorescents. But when we want to shoot a lot of the close-up work and things we do on our assembly table, that's where softboxes first come into play. Softboxes are pretty straightforward, and they come in a few different shapes. This particular unit has the bulb in the center, and then there's reflective material all around the inside. And on the outside, it's covered by this material, which is essentially a diffuser. And that's the whole purpose behind the softbox. It's to diffuse and soften the light on your subject. In the shop for recording, we use 3 softboxes primarily. One to my right, one to my left, and then the other above behind me. This gives adequate light to the table itself and whatever props we're working on, and then the light behind me also fills in any of the space that would be too dark otherwise. Now, for the most part, since we've been filming episodes on building projects, this lighting has worked fairly well. But I will say, from time to time, it gets a little bit dark, and it's not quite as dynamic as I want the videos to appear. So recently we invested in another type of lighting that I want to show you now. This little guy right here is a LED studio lighting kit. I purchased them in a group of 3, and essentially this contains 168 LEDs, full RGB, that we can actually control from an app. So I can do different modes of color and different types of color with this kit. These GVM studio lights have the ability to be either powered via battery or hardwired by a plug. And on the switch, I can flip from battery to actual hardwire. It has a few different modes, so I'm able to either do this manually with rotating these knobs, so I can change the brightness, or I can change the actual color temperature on this one. And then when I switch it back to app mode, then I'm able to control that via the phone. The phone app, I'm able to go through, it picks up all my Bluetooth devices, and I can actually select and connect to the specific lighting device that I want to control. If I start from the left going right, I have a few different options. In the CCT mode, I'm able to control the max output. You can see the brightness back behind here. And then I'm also able to control the temperature, the Kelvin, from warm to a cool. The HSI mode is what I typically use for these particular LED studio lights. I'm able to actually then control the hue on this spectrum wheel. And then from here, I'm able to determine the brightness of the lights as well as the saturation level of each light. So I can set it to an orange temperature, bring up the saturation, and drop the brightness until I'm getting the right glow that I want for that particular shot. Now, we use the studio LED lights in a few episodes before I realized that the light, even with changing the range of temperature or brightness, was still producing a really hard edge. And it wasn't as soft as my softbox lights are. Well, they make a solution for that, and I was able to pick one up, actually 3 of them up, to put them on my studio lights. And that's small softboxes. Essentially, they're nothing more than a very small softbox that will fit over this light and an opening behind. And they go together really slick. I have to give a big thanks out to our friend Ron, who also is the CG artist on YouTube, as he's the one that pointed me in this direction for these awesome softbox lights. Now, the camera shows all the individual LEDs if you look directly at it. But when we're shooting, actually all I'm getting is this nice orange warm glow across the space. So now our shot setup tend to look more like this. We take the LED studio lights, set one to kind of a warm orange. The one across from me on my left, or your right, is a little bit of a blue. And then we have a third one that came with the kit that we put off in the distance, and that helps add a little bit more light to the table. Now, in addition to our softboxes, the studio LEDs, we also try to light the rest of the shop in a little bit of an interesting way, with the little warm lamp back here to add a little extra light, the blue light behind the Smugglers Room logo, the light above our little Fat Bantha refrigerator, even the lighting in the paint booth to try to add another dimension to the space. I talk about adding lighting to your props, costumes, and projects because I feel like lighting brings them to life. Well, I feel a lot of the same way about the shop. And though we have a lot more work to do to be able to get this lit in a studio fashion that's a little easier to use, overall, when we crank up the lights and we get a project on the table and start to work with it, it all starts to come alive. At the end of the day, we do all of this for a couple of reasons. First, and most importantly, we want the videos that you see to look as good as we can make them look with what we have and the experiences that we've gained since starting the Smugglers Room. We want those projects to pop, and we want it to be a comfortable viewing experience for you. On the other side, having all of these lights set up also gives us that little extra energy that I mentioned, and it really focuses us down onto the projects we're working on, and it makes the whole process really enjoyable. So a bit of a different type of geekication for you this week. Not necessarily prop or project related, or even really tool related. But maybe you're starting to film your own projects and you wanted a few ideas for lighting. Or perhaps you want a better way to light props and projects you're going to take photos of. This is just the surface for us. We have so much more to learn about how to light and film and improve each episode for you so they get better and better. But we wanted to answer the question, how do you light the Smugglers Room? We really enjoy doing these geekication videos, and we hope that we're providing some value for you. If you have some suggestions and ideas of things you'd like to learn more about, whether that's a tool, a material, a technique that we use in one of our projects, put those in the comments below. We'd love to start building a catalog of things that you find valuable. And until then, keep building something out of nothing.